All right, welcome to a special Shop Talk 2023 bonus episode of the Remarkable Retail Podcast presented by Market Dial. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm Steve Dennis.
Well, Steve, we are live together high above the Las Vegas sands in the Wizeline podcasting studio, a.k.a. my hotel room. Steve, you just wrapped up the conference. Oh, here it is. I love Nazareth. I love the song. I play it every time I land in Vegas.
That's a deep cut for the kids.
That's a deep cut. Hey, Boomer. You just wrapped the conference. We're up in the hotel suite last day with a great panel, the Last of Us panel, so to speak.
Yeah. We closed it out.
You closed it out with panache, I got to say.
The only thing between them and their flights or losing money in the casino.
Or whatever it was. Anyway, you did a great job. It's panel on innovation. Let's start there and work backwards, so to speak. Tell us about your panel.
Well, we had a really, I guess you could say, eclectic mix of panelists. We had Neil Tenzer, who's the head of strategy and development at the Tractor Supply Company, Carol Diarra, who is the head of brand at UGG, and I'm going to screw up her name, Eva Gocheya, something like that.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Eva, if you're listening, who is the founder and CEO of Maud, which is a sexual wellness brand. Yeah. Which is started as a direct-to-consumer brand, and actually by the time, or the day that this comes out, they will be launching in Sephora.
Yeah, big news from them. Huge
news for them.
And for the category in Sephora to have sexual wellness in Sephora.
Exactly,
it's like, it's about time kind of thing.
Yeah, it's really...
It's about damn time.
It's kind of surprising
TikTok meme there.
that it's taken that. We got Nazareth, and we cover the landscape of music here on the Remarkable Retail Podcast. But we started kind of big picture in terms of how what is the definition of innovation, how they think about it as part of their strategy, the process they employ, and because we had essentially a big brand owner, a retailer selling other people's products, and then a more of a startup, it was a pretty interesting perspective. So.
Yeah, I thought from that perspective it was super interesting because they each had great points to make. I mean, the size dispersion and the variety was quite. You did a great job managing that. The differential, so to speak, between the two. But I did think they both got their points across, and they both had different perspectives. A Tractor Supply being a multi-billion-dollar company, a more rigorous apply to it with. Right. Maud having a few. There's 13 of us. It was funny. The question is, what's the culture like? Well, there's 13 of us, so we got a pretty good. We got a pretty good culture.
We just look across the table or the Zoom, and
there we go. So that was great. Now we should talk a little bit about the tradecraft of our podcast, Remarkable Retail Podcast, with a new innovation.
Do we have tradecraft?
I think this time we had tradecraft. We had some game actually because there's these new meetups. There's one-to-one meetings. There's lots of great content, so we really had to work hard long in advance. And what we did is we set up a beach cabana as a podcast studio. We called it the Wizeline Waterside Podcasting Studio. So that worked out really well.
Yes. Except that it was freezing the first day.
Oh, my God.
Other than a few cases of hypothermia, we managed to get a couple episodes in.
So when listeners are, and we got some great episodes coming up, we'll tease those a little bit, but you'll hear, instead of the buzza of a trade show floor, you'll hear some music in the background, and that's just the music playing around the pool, so kind of a heads up to the listeners. Now, we should also spend a second on the innovations launched by ShopTalk this year. They made a big deal of it. They're actually having a ShopTalk fall event, and they're having it in fall 2024 in Chicago, which actually took a bunch of people by surprise because the way they announced it, a lot of people thought this fall, but it's actually 2024.
Right. Yes, that was a little confusing.
You spent a lot of time in Chicago. It's an interesting choice to go to the East Coast, to go to Chicago, not New York, to go to October. What do you make of it?
Well, Chicago's my kind of town, but I assume some of it is just accessibility. More center of the country, maybe make it a little bit easier for people from both coasts to get there.
Big airport. Yep.
Big international airport as well. Yep. Maybe a little bit easier to get people to come from overseas. Mm-hmm. And, I'm speculating, we'll see, that their grocery shop event could be combined into that. And Chicago's a great place for the grocery industry because there are so many CPG companies, not only in Chicago, but Minneapolis, Cincinnati. Yep. So from that standpoint, that could be quite convenient. But we'll see. I think it'll be a while probably before we hear much of the
If anybody
details.
from Shop Talk is listening to the podcast, drop us a line and give us the advance notice and give us the breaking news story. All right, let's talk about the conference. So let's start at a high level with let's say 3 broad themes that kind of stuck out in your mind as you listen to, A, listen to the sessions, B, we had lots of friends at the pod stop by our podcasting studio, and then the hallways, and then the dinners, and, what was your, when you think about it, what was your 3 top things that you're walking away with as themes this year?
I might give you 4.
Or bonus. You give me a bonus one.
Bonus, but that's not all.
Bonus.
In no particular order, I mean, one thing that really struck me last year, I would say the big consistent theme was discussion of the metaverse. I almost felt like if you said metaverse, you would be shunned or stoned. The metaverse was very much over as a topic of conversation, replaced by...
Did you see what our friend Phil posted on today, the meh-verse?
The metaverse. I like that. Phil Waba from Fortune.
Yeah. No, he also described Canada as the Bermuda Triangle of retail, which I do take some issue with. But anyway, we'll talk about that later.
But Phil is a proud Canadian. It's Montrealer, though, so a little more acerbic or something. I don't know. But generative AI was really, I guess many people refer to it as the belle of the ball. So lots about the potential of AI across multiple panels. And I mean, I certainly feel that personally, like that's way, way, way more interesting than the metaverse. So that was one. The second one...
Did you see, by the way, today, talk about timing, maybe Shoptalk orchestrated this because they're getting pretty powerful, but Elon Musk posts a letter that...
about the delay.
About you got to stop because he's always been freaked out by AI.
Yeah.
I mean, he's on the side of the Judgment Day scenario, right? That we're all going to be, AI is going to just realize we're the big enemy. So it's interesting timing. We're all talking about it. It's suddenly, it's weird. A couple of people said this on the stage, and I feel the same thing. Suddenly, I don't know if it came out of nowhere, but Chat GPT just burst on the scene and just changed the conversation like a month ago, literally and figuratively and algorithmically. Yeah. Like we've been talking about AI, you and I, as an important driver of retail for years, but suddenly there's this thing that has happened and it's really burst open. We see it, and we're seeing it here today.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I didn't see it coming because we talked about AI and predictions and things like that, but specifically ChatGPT, the way it's just caught not only the business world, but just kind of the population writ large, the culture writ large, I think is fascinating. So that was absolutely a big driver. A lot of discussion about, I guess you could say, reframing the direct-to-consumer conversation. For several years, a lot of it was about the digitally native brands, these disruptive D2C brands, this kind of conversation around, is DTC a business model or is it just a channel, as our friend Simeon talks about. Yeah. But also just kind of taking the D out of DTC, how so many companies are now appreciating that wholesale can be part of the mix, and that's okay, and it's really just getting the balance right. I mean, we had a little bit of, as people will hear, we had a conversation with one of our guests about that. So I think just a lot of kind of rethinking or reframing of the direct-to-consumer conversation. The third, I would say, is what I'm playing around with this a little bit, but just kind of the year of living efficiently. that less about growth strategies and kind of breakthrough innovation, outside of the AI conversation, but a lot more of just how do we get more out of what we have, automation, these kinds of things, dealing with labor costs, but it's kind of recognition that business is likely to be tough for many, and so how do we perform financially better by taking costs out or finding ways to save. And then the last one I'll mention is what I'll call, I guess, kind of first-party data reigns supreme. This has been something that just didn't come up just at this conference, but with the changes in Apple iOS. But not only just that, we have to figure out what this all means in terms of our marketing strategy, but also talking about different strategies, whether it's a loyalty program or some sort of other way of getting the consumer to engage in a way that you can personally identify them. It's
really shaken things up. I know in my neck of the woods, Air Miles, which is owned by Loyalty One out of the U.S., declared bankruptcy. They were at once the biggest coalition program in Canada. They were huge, 16 million Canadians out of 18 million. And they went into protection and got bought by BMO. Hey, shout out to Simeon Siegel. We should have talked about that. But Bank of Montreal bought them.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
And what's interesting is that Empire Group, which is Sobeys, bought in and actually were part of a Cineplex Scotiabank, not to get into the weeds, and they actually bought into their coalition. So you could see the smart moves that retailers are making to make sure they're positioned for for first-party data. Now, are there any panels particularly that you sat through that kind of jumped up? I mean, you and I were just talking off mic about Panera Bread, and George Hansen was talking about the deal they've done with JWO and biometrics, which I think is the biggest install by order of magnitude, 21 over 2,000 locations.
Yeah, I think easily the most. Yeah, I think it's particularly well. It number one, it is, as you said, a big step from where Amazon has been with that. What it suggests about a strategy for them to license that technology more aggressively, as opposed to, I mean, it doesn't have to be either or, I suppose, but whether it suggests anything about whether they're going to go forward with that technology as a centerpiece of their physical store strategy. So I thought that was interesting.
That's enough to build a bit of a business case.
Sure, that's
a big win. What's the other one that the Hudson News
is? That's probably the biggest installation, because I think that's maybe a couple hundred stores. So that was interesting. Day one of the interesting keynotes that I saw was Bill Reedy, I have his last name wrong, the CEO of Pinterest. And I'm not very active on Pinterest, and I haven't honestly paid that much attention to them in the social media space. But a couple things he talked about, well, just broadly, was about how Pinterest is one of the few social media platforms where you're not going for entertainment. You're actually going to shop.
Yeah.
And
curation, right?
Curation, right. And how they're starting to really add some of these features. I can't, it doesn't make for good radio here to try to explain the thing that he showed about basically putting these collages together and how you can see similar looks for
it was really great
for outfits or redecorating or what have you.
Host of things.
And it's really adding, when you think. I mean, I guess the other thing he said about it, which again I hadn't thought about all that much, but when we talk about buying versus shopping on the pod, and just generally how e-commerce tends to be. You go there on a mission to get things done. So good at the buying part, not so good at the shopping part.
Right.
But what they were showing, they were bringing more solutions and visual imagery in a different way than I've seen. I think that's pretty interesting. So we'll see where that goes.
I saw a panel actually just right before your panel on social media influences, and I thought. ShopTalk did a good job of curating the panel. They had Sam Wick, head of UTA Ventures, so the talent, very big talent agency, and he was rolling off some big names who were, creating coffee and doing all these things and really taking their presence and growing it up and working with retailers, not just to amplify what retailers are doing, but to take it into actually on the shelves, which is super interesting. Angela, Chief Marketing Officer at Overstock, was saying, listen, we don't want to chase their tails all day long measuring this stuff. We know it's top of the funnel. We know it's work. And then Matt Cleary, the U.S. head of retail e-commerce for TikTok, was there in his farewell appearance, joking there, but probably not, as TikTok anyway. I'm sure he'll find a great job. He's a talented guy, but I'm not sure TikTok will be around this time next year. Yes. In its form today, I'll hedge there, in its current form. But it was really, and it was really good. Principal analysts from social media, principal analyst from Insider Intelligence, Jasmine Enberg, kind of kicked it off with, it's very powerful. Like, social media and influencer strategy is very powerful. The funny thing about that was how she was touching on this de-influencing piece, where people are posting, don't buy these following things. It's called de-influencing. I don't know if you've seen this.
No. Kids today.
I had to laugh because Sam was like, we're not really about that. Anyway, so that was interesting, and there's just lots of great chit chat. I mean, the place was buzzing, lots of chit chat. What did they do? Like 320,000 one-to-one meetings. You did a few of them, right?
Yeah, it's so. I mean, it's really hard to explain. They had this thing that looked like, again, we'll keep making antiquated references. After the Nazareth reference, we'll go back to the Raiders of the Lost Ark. But the end of the scene of the first movie where they're taking that crate into this massive warehouse, that was kind of the way the floor,
the endless
looked,
warehouse,
with just. I don't know, a couple thousand tables or something. And
incredible.
Then across a couple of days, several hours a day, these one-on-one meetings that lasted 15 minutes, and how they used this collaboration software to match people, double opt-in kind of thing.
And you did a couple of those. We were busy here, to be fair, just again to the listeners, like we were really tied up with the pod, but you fit in a couple of these.
Yeah,
right?
I think I did maybe 6. Yep. And a couple of them were people that I knew just to kind of catch up, and others were newer relationships to talk about various things. So maintain the confidentiality of that. But But yeah, it was really an interesting new feature and seemed to be very well received. And just the massive scale of it was kind of hard to get my head around.
Yeah. Well, listen, I guess advice to everyone. We're here on the Friday. We're both home now. We're recording this on the Wednesday, but we're both in home base, and there's lots of people posting great content about what happened here. Yeah. So, tune in to LinkedIn, have a listen to this, but tune in. There's lots of people posting some really great content. Now, I guess looking forward for a few seconds, our next time together. And next time on the road, we'll be at the World Retail Congress in Barcelona, less than a month away, actually.
Right, yes.
So we got some great interviews lined up for that, and we're going to Spain, and we'll be covering that show. And then right after...
Viva España.
Viva España. I have to come up with some music for that. And then you're right, like a couple of weeks later, you're back in Spain for Shop Talk Europe, right?
Yes. Well, inside baseball here, I'm actually not leaving Spain, but because I'm going to take some time with my daughter Elena to travel in between. Nice. But yes, I will be in Barcelona at the end of April, and then back in. Actually, I'm making a side jog to Denmark, but anyway, that's way more information than anybody cares about. But yes, I will be back for Shop Talk Europe in Barcelona, May 10th through 12th, I think.
All right. Well, fantastic. Well, listen, that's a wrap on this bonus episode. Nice, quick pulse on the show. Great to be with you, my friend. Appreciate you. Always. So it'll be great to be with you again in Barcelona, of all places. So until then, listeners, you've got some amazing interviews coming up. So stay tuned and watch this channel.